Hi, thank you for tuning in. I am Mikko Ketokivi. I am Professor of Operations Management and Organization Design at IE University in Madrid. Since 2010, I've been teaching a doctoral seminar on theory. I am now offering this seminar to anyone who's interested as an online version. The seminar is called Contributing to Theory Progress, and I'm offering it in collaboration with the New Scholars Network. Let me unpack the three words in the title: contributing, theory, progress. And for that, imagine that you're sitting around a table with a bunch of other researchers and you're having a conversation on a topic of interest. Let's say the size of the firm or organizational boundaries more generally. And you'd like to learn something new about organizational boundaries, the size of the firm, the scope of the firm. The conversation will probably observe a number of rules and logics. There are concepts that are commonly used, and then there are concepts that are probably not used at all because they're irrelevant. To me, this is the general idea of a theory. It is a conversation among scholars on a specific topic, and the conversation follows a certain number of predetermined rules. Yes, some of us present propositions and draw boxes and arrows diagrams, but in the general sense, theory as conversation has always been a compelling metaphor to me. And even though we talk about the same topics such as organizational boundaries year after year, decade after decade, we would prefer not to repeat the same ideas over and over again. We'd like to hear something new. So this is the notion of progress. Understanding something better than we did before. Participants saying something that hasn't been said before. And now, let's say that you sit down at one of these tables, you listen in to the conversation, and then at some point you decide, I'm going to raise my hand, I think I have something to say. Well, what is it that you're going to say? How are you going to convince your audience, the others around the table, that you're saying something that's not redundant and something that links to the conversation, that takes the conversation forward? This is the idea of a contribution in the general sense. Saying something valuable, something that garners the attention of the rest of the table, and then something that maybe someone else will build upon after you've said it. So this is the basic idea of contributions to theory progress, and that's what this online seminar is all about. The seminar will be centered on 5 interrelated questions. And these are questions that any scholar, any researcher has to ask. But I'm going to focus on them from the point of view of a new scholar, by which I mean doctoral candidates in their dissertation stage and untenured faculty members who are seeking to establish themselves as members of the scholarly community. So, this seminar is for those of you who are about to sit down at a table, listen in on the conversations, and then at some point raising your hand. And the first obvious question is, how do I garner the attention of my audience, the rest of the scholars around the table? How do I make my research relevant to them, interesting to them? How do I, on the one hand, avoid being redundant? Because if I just repeat something that's been said already, then I'm redundant and irrelevant. But on the other hand, I can't just challenge and question everything, every assumption, every empirical research result, because then I will appear unreasonable and again irrelevant. So you need to find the sweet spot where you challenge enough so as not to be redundant, but not too much so as not to appear unreasonable. After asking this question, we will ask 2 related but distinct methodological questions. One is, how do I reason? How do I move from a set of premises to a set of conclusions in a way that compels my audience? A related question is, how do I structure an argument? Because reasoning and argumentation aren't the same thing. They're certainly complementary and interrelated, but reasoning, let's say, reasoning to an empirical generalization is not the same as presenting an argument. And I have highlighted topics 2 and 3 here because these are the central content of the seminar. And these are also topics on which I have done a lot of research myself. So I'm hoping to give you something unique on topics 2 and 3 in particular. Of course, I hope to be able to give you something on 1, 4, and 5 as well, but 2 and 3 are topics that I have looked at over the past 20 years quite a bit into. After the 2 methodological sessions, we shift gears to the more collective and social aspects. So we'll look at evaluation of arguments. So we will focus on the peer review, although I will talk about dissertation review as well. We will look at editorial policies. We will look at review processes, and we will look at what does the formal process of trying to convince an audience look like. And then finally, we're going to ask the question of relevance. I never understood the distinction between rigor and relevance, because how could you possibly be relevant if you're not rigorous? So we kind of have to take rigor as a given and then focus on the question, relevant to whom and relevant how? That is the final 5th question in the seminar. This is how the seminar will be organized. There will be 1 session for each of the 5 questions, and each session will consist of an online lecture by me followed by interactions. I will not assign any readings as such, so you can attend all the sessions without any preparation. I will, however, give you a number of suggested readings if you want to take a closer look at the topic. Everything will be made available, courtesy of the New Scholars Network, free of charge on YouTube. And I will record any follow-up Q&A sessions and podcasts as needed. One thing I really want to make absolutely clear is that this seminar offers one point of view. If we look at just the sheer number of academic journals in our field, there are dozens, there are hundreds of them. I can claim to know maybe half a dozen of them. So I am not coming to this seminar with the intention of telling you how the world works. I am going to give you a point of view. And I'm not going to answer the 5 questions that we ask in this seminar for you. What I'm going to do is help you think about them yourself. I really like this quote by Jay Barney, who notes that all writing is autobiographical. I've always liked this, the idea that just like we have our unique fingerprints, we have our unique styles and ways of writing. In fact, if you gave me an article written by someone who sits at one of the tables at which I participate, there's a good chance I'd be able to identify the author without you telling me who it is, just based on the academic fingerprint that I see embedded in the text. So I really want to emphasize this idea that even though those who sit around the table follow a set of agreed upon rules, we all have our unique way of doing research and writing about it and presenting arguments about it. And as you look at the syllabus, With the readings, again, there are no mandatory readings, but I really encourage you to dig deeper into these topics. You will see that many of the articles have me as a co-author. Now, I have no intention of showcasing my own work, but my fingerprint, my point of view is in a fundamental way embedded in the text that I have authored or co-authored myself. So that's why you will see more than one article on the syllabus with my name on it. That said, I will not assign anything that I've written unless it's been peer-reviewed and accepted into the body of knowledge. So you will get no policy statements from me. We will look at editorial policies and research policy when we look at different journals in session number 4, but I am not going to make any policy statements myself. That is not my role. I want to focus on the notion of contributing to theory progress, and the emphasis is on methodological issues. All the lectures will be recorded and they will be made available on YouTube. So if you can't attend the live session, the recording will be made available very quickly after the session. And here are some of the obvious benefits of recorded lectures. These are largely self-evident, but let me just comment on number 4. When we discuss reasoning and argumentation, sessions 2 and 3, my prediction is that if you go back to the recording of session 2 after you have either attended session 3 or watched the recording of session 3, you may get something more out of the discussion on session 2. So once we have talked about the structure of arguments, you may be able to understand how we reason better now that you have seen how our reasoning is ultimately embedded in our argumentation. So something that appears later in the sessions may illuminate better something that appears early. So that's an advantage that I would like to mention. That is contributing to theory of progress in a nutshell. Thank you again for taking the time, and a warm welcome to the seminar.